Hey, so I did end up missing a couple of weeks on my regular YouTube. I'm trying to do at least every other week, but I missed that this week. But I am recording this, and I feel like it's a pretty good time to talk about where to prioritize your time, like in your marketing and in your business in general. Because when client work starts to kick up or your personal life, happens, like I had to deal with my kiddo having, an infection and going to the ER, and, all the things inevitably happen. We've talked about that when I discussed, what it's like to be chronically ill and be a disabled business owner. So then the kind of thing is like, okay, where do you prioritize your time? And I think that is helpful for literally all of us because, and I'm guilty of this too, marketing tends to be the thing that gets dropped the fastest because it is the thing that there's no immediate return more often than not. That's just the reality of it. Like, I get that. Like, any type of seeds that you're planting through your marketing usually take 60 to 90 days to really start to show results. In fact, it can even be, depending on the particular strategy or tactic that you're using, you may not even see full-on results until 6 months or longer in some of these tactics. And you have to be consistent to get those results, but also because you know that there's probably not going to be immediate results, it becomes obvious of like, okay, well, the things that are like actively paying me, like clients, like the discovery calls, like networking or referrals or all these other things. Like, there's a reason why we kind of spend that time on that, because there's just a lot shorter of a return. But like the key is figuring out some sort of system for yourself to where you are allowing that short term, like fishing and casting of those like leads or referrals, while also keeping space in your schedule for the longer term marketing and projects. Like, that is the ideal. But how do we go about doing that? Again, it's a little bit personalized for other folks, but I think that starting off with, like, if you are somebody who is like early on and you are, still validating, prioritizing your time is going to be different depending on your situation or your stage of business. And for those folks who they're really just kind of getting started, it may not be the right time to like start a podcast or to show up on YouTube. That might not be the right thing to prioritize for you. It may be that face-to-face time. It may be, showing up either virtually or in in-person networking events. I did a lot of that my first several years, really. Just for one, I enjoy it. I enjoy making those connections. So that helps me. But even when you're, maybe a bit more introverted, finding something that's a little bit more educational, so you can, like some sort of workshop, so where you have something you can talk about with other folks, or they're struggling with something similar to you. Finding a way to, like, okay, I'm at a conference, what is like gonna be my go-to icebreaker? I'm not an introvert, but I've often helped, I call myself the emotional support extrovert for a reason, because I kind of help, some of my introverted friends and colleagues come out of their shells a little bit. But, you can be intentional about that even if you don't have that kind of person in your life. Although, in the comments, if you, want some more of that type of community, I have a Discord server that you could pop into. That's a little less pressure. But so I think that face-to-face, you're going to get used to saying your elevator pitch, which I have talked about at length. I'll probably do a whole nother YouTube video about that, because I have learned and grown so much about, like, understanding how to describe what you do to people in the moment. That's succinct, that's going to get their point across, that they'll understand, that'll start a conversation instead of like putting people to sleep. Like, that is the first action you can take toward like honing in on that message, which you probably, if you're first getting started, you don't have that all together yet. It's usually through the first several clients where the recurring themes start to come up. You start to see the testimonials that you'll get will have things that people will start to say about why they chose you, and you'll start to get that understanding. So early on, just meeting as many people as you can, taking in the information that you can, figuring out, like, it's building that self-awareness muscle the most. And again, just getting more comfortable about talking about your business, talking about what you do, understanding like what offers or modalities are going to help people get results. I think like you focusing on that aspect of it. But the most of the people that I work with have gone through that stage. They're kind of in the mushy, messy middle stage where you're like, okay, well, I kind of know what I'm about. I know like my body of work, or I'm starting to build that up, and I have the concepts and frameworks that I take clients through. I have a process. I have all of these things. Now what? And it's hard because you see lots of support and resources and mentorship for people in that very, very beginning stage. And then you see lots of stuff helping people scale and hire, and you'll get funding to like for especially the tech businesses that like hire all the people and all and just start going faster. But people in the middle, you're not really ready for that type of, like, you just don't have the capacity or like just the desire to be at that level. But you're not a beginner anymore. And it kind of is that point of like, okay, well, I need to show you that you need to show up regularly, again, that pull, but you also have clients. And so prioritizing your time here is really the hard part. And it's, I'm going to give some general guidelines and things that I have, observations that I've had through the years with myself and with clients. But this is one of the main things that I work with clients is, where do you prioritize your time? When I do narrative growth audits with folks, and I'm looking at the big picture of their business and their marketing, we often are spending time doing things that, like, this last 2 weeks, I was doing a lot of reels, and like, it's not that that's a bad place to prioritize my time. I was getting impressions, but was it leading to customers? So balancing out, what is my strategy right now? Do I need to just get more visible? Well, would being more visible via reels be more helpful to me, or reaching out to like podcast hosts and having like genuine, more in-depth conversations where I can kind of talk through my story and maybe educate people on my framework? So it's like, it's the low-hanging fruit is not always the right place to spend time, even though it doesn't always feel very time consuming. It is like, could I have spent that time doing something else, right? So like that's like that piece of it. So it's like visibility, especially if you're trying to transition from that one-to-one service to maybe something a bit more less dollars for hours, meaning like maybe an event, maybe a course, maybe a community, like maybe you are trying to monetize the content itself, like you're trying to get AdSense from YouTube. And so you do start to need that volume. So you start to go from that one-on-one, because what works for marketing for one-on-one services is not the same marketing strategy that you do to the masses. And I think that often is where people start to get confused, because you're like, okay, this is what helped me get my business to year 1, 2, 3, I'm on year 3.5. And then you kind of have to look at that and revise it and be like, okay, like that is what's helping me now. And again, it's the one-to-one clients are what keeps the basis of your revenue, and and keeps your lights on and all of that while you're building up the audience. So there is this like transitional phase that I see folks go through. But it's like, how much of my time do I want to, like, maybe you have a referral base that you can kind of lean on as you're starting to block off time. Is there maybe once a weekend not once a weekend, but like once a month, you pick one weekend a month. This is just me just spitballing for you. Like outside of your work time, of your normal work schedule, you just do batch 2 to 3, like you batch some videos, like some longer form videos or podcasts, and, figure out a way that's like, my 40 hours a week is mostly client stuff, or it's sales, or it's meetings, or it's admin stuff. Like, how can I find time that is dedicated to that creativity. And even when I had a day job, I was this way. I had decided, my day job was exhausting, but like not in a creative way. Like it was a very not a very creatively gratifying job. I was a nurse. No offense to nursing. If you are a nurse, but you'll understand there's like, if you're a creative person, there's not really a creative way to administer medication. There's no, there's a right way and a wrong way. So for those who are of us creative, you're exhausted at the end of the day, but you're still not really feeling fulfilled in the way that you would like to. So what I had decided was, I worked at a clinic. I woke up a couple hours early and I would write on my science fiction novel for those 2 hours or hour and a half every day, Monday through Friday, because my thought was like, that creative energy needs to be fresh. That was just what worked for me at the time. So finding those pockets of time that are separate from that given amount of time. So like you can find those pockets, but when it comes to prioritizing, it's like, what is that meaningful work that's actually going to feel fulfilling? Some people don't like recording video, or it feels very exhausting. I'll be honest, the editing process is sometimes pretty exhausting for me, like mentally. But unfortunately, like sometimes, like, can you skip it? Like I don't do a lot of editing anymore because I know that that's what's going to stop me from like actually showing up and being consistent in the way that I would like to. So, sometimes you can forego those things, sometimes you can't. Sometimes there's no getting around a little bit of that, but that's why I like to reward myself with things. But the prioritization is there a way you can ease into it? We'll talk in the next video about a minimum viable marketing campaign, which is my way of kind of like, what is a self-contained way you can test drive this type of strategy in a way that's self-contained enough that you can know, hey, is this sustainable for me? Can I let that go? Is it something that's repurposable later? Is it something that I could continue in the foreseeable future? Is there a stop date? Like, for example, podcasts can have seasons. You're like, yeah, I could do this, but I couldn't do this for 52 weeks a year. Maybe I could just do it for like 20 episodes a year and then give myself time off and, or whatever, how would that look to where I take like a 2 or 3 month break every year, because it doesn't have to look the same as everybody else. And I think that is a piece of it too, is we're like, oh, XYZ, this is how everybody does it. And that might not work for your brain. We've talked about that. Like there's some advice or some things that like anything that would require me to show up every single week for 52 weeks a year, I probably just do not have that energetic capacity in me, knowing that I have health stuff, knowing that my son has some health stuff as well. Like I could not commit to that. Like I'm doing live streams every Friday via YouTube and LinkedIn. And that's a little bit different only in like, I don't have any prep work that goes into that. I have it's like a sticky note worth of topics I want to talk about in that topic. Like I designed the thumbnail to go up and that's it. So that is a little bit easier. Then even again, I would not feel bad about rescheduling that for like a following week if I'm sick. Like there's just some things that's just how that works. So it's like kind of having the flexibility, or at least having a self-contained amount of time to where you don't feel bad if you can't keep going with it. Like, hey, I'm going to try this for 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, see how it makes me feel. See how, again, you might not see results right away, but is there enough like traction there of, people are showing up, even if it's only a couple of people at a time? Is it something like maybe somebody was on the fence and they saw that and then they, made a, like an inquiry, like it might not have been the deciding factor, but it was at least something that like helped them kind of figure out if they align with you. There's ways to kind of to gauge that. And like I said, if you have the capacity in you, I would say keep going at least to see if it does start to get that that traction going. Especially with things like YouTube or podcasts or like articles on your website or on your Substack, like those tend to, it's build on themselves. So I would say when it comes to prioritizing your time, social media, the algorithm will start to expect something from you, but like there's that life cycle of social media. We've talked about this in Algorithm Proofing Your Business. That life cycle is pretty short. When I was doing my 3 or 4 posts a week earlier this month, I would say that the traction drops off within like 24 to 36 hours. It's bad. Like it was a little bit more than that, like just a couple of years ago. It's not. Like basically, if you want social media to work for you, you probably need to be posting like every single day is what it is at least what I saw through my metrics. And even then, people may be watching, but are they taking action? They were clicking through my website, so that was helpful to see what was causing that. Because again, those are topics that maybe can be blown up into longer videos like I'm doing. But if you have a limited amount of time, do things that build on itself and that have a longer life cycle. Meaning I was looking at my YouTube analytics earlier this week, and there are videos from like a year or more ago that are still getting views, and that is not uncommon. And it's the same way with like your podcast, and it'll be the same way with, if you have like articles or like you've pinned things onto Pinterest, those things will still get pinned like many months later. So thinking through the life cycle and like the shelf life of certain content. And what's great is like, let's say, okay, well, a great example is I did a video early on my YouTube channel about positioning, but I have refined my take, and I've refined some of the things I think through with that. I can go record that and and update it and keep that, and so it's like it can still be refreshed. Same with like articles. Like you can add addendums into your podcast. So like just because it a longer lifetime does not mean that you cannot update it in the future when you get new information. So to me, it has that, and then again, you're breathing new life into it. More eyes can get put back onto it again. So there's definitely benefits towards that. So, and I use YouTube because, in this way, because I would also say prioritizing video over other forms, or even audio, if you don't feel super comfortable with showing up your face on a screen, which video is becoming more and more just prevalent. So I would be like, start to build up that muscle and that confidence if you can. But video is going to be, again, more repurposable, meaning that like a social media post, even a reel, it's fine, but like, what can I do with that later? Not nearly as much. With videos and live streams and all of those things, I've downloaded them. I have like either put them in the course if they're like lengthy and more informational enough. I looked through, you can transcribe them. AI makes that a lot easier. I don't necessarily use AI in generative ways, but to transcribe a video, it's still my words. So you may want to reformat them for a written way, but you can take your YouTube videos and turn them into audio and get them as podcasts, so there's a lot of different ways to use video that so again, increasing the shelf life, increasing the versatility of it. That's why I definitely say, even though talking head posts or videos are good, mixing it up, if you have other types of ways to go about that, I definitely want to do that more moving forward, because those tend to, again, have that more versatility. Talking into a screen is great for YouTube videos, but it may not work as well for social media. Those have been doing pretty well for me, but I think that it needs more movement for people to be visually engaging. which is been that observation. So again, finding ways to like, can I video myself speaking a workshop, you know, and use that as on YouTube? Is there a way that I can maybe speak over slides sometimes, you know, like finding ways to, again, things that you've already maybe created for yourself or for clients or templates. In fact, I started taking I was creating templates for the Story Spark Marketing Studio, which is going to be the offer that I'm planning on creating late summer. So late August, early September, be on the lookout for that. But I was creating all of the resources for that, you know, all the templates and things that I use with clients, and like really just sprucing those up and making all of my framework something that people can actually put into action. You know, I've been talking about like strategy over action and implementation on my live streams. But I took those things and I'm like, oh, I can just talk like social media. I can make social media posts that are really just me explaining the templates that I made. And, you know, and maybe I can even like show some of that. I haven't done that second part yet, but like just talking about that, like, hey, this is why I use this template. This is how it works for people. This is what people are able to do with it. Or, hey, here's something about your sales strategy you may not have thought of, or like, here's how you can connect the content that you're making into sales. And this is how I go about it. And doing that. So there's definitely a way you can use things that you've already created for, yeah, you know, for more marketing. In fact, one of the biggest things I do with my clients is I see what they already have created. Or I ask them like, hey, here's how to go about organizing all of that into a like, a folder where you can kind of see, like, here's all my videos, here's all my transcripts, here's all the PR, you know, or the podcast interviews I've done. Like, here is the templates that I make for clients, or something that I make for clients, like deliverable of any kind that I do for clients. And, you know, and like looking at it all, you start to see of like, I actually already have. In fact, I looked at this myself. If I just go by just what I've written, and like I have 6 to 9 months of content that I've already done, basically. So you would be, and now granted, I create content for a living. I write for, you know, like that is my job, is just to do a lot of writing. So like it might not be quite that extensive for you, but you would have more than you know, just already sitting there. So I would say, like, if you're prioritizing your time and you know, like, hey, I'm going to hit a patch where I know that like my kid is starting kindergarten, I have to do all the back to school stuff, or, you know, like, maybe there's activities that need to happen, or, you know, the holidays are coming up, or, you know, like whatever those are, you can kind of start to backload and start to see of like, hey, this performed really well last year. I only have a few tweaks I would do to update it for this year. And that's what maybe I'll put out while knowing that I'm strapped for time. Or instead of doing pre-recorded, really polished, edited YouTube videos, maybe you'll just start to just jump on live, you know, once a week. You know, like, what are ways you can kind of get the point across or show up still in that consistent way without putting all the emphasis on you creating something new. And I think that is like sometimes that biggest shift for folks is just understanding that, you know, when you have that more time, like we talked about with the, like the bell curve of like the energy of a chronically ill business owner creator, when you're in that high frame of time of like, I am doing all the things, I'm feeling really good, you know, I'm sprinting along, you know, like find, you know, don't put it all out at once if you can, you know, if you can help it. You know, maybe you keep some of it back for the times where you're at the other end of that bell curve and you're like, okay, I can't do anything. You know, maybe I need to, you know, like pull out some of the stuff from my archives. So I think that piece is like is just accepting that that's part of it. You know, like I said, there's something, if you're like me and you know, like, hey, I'll never be able to do everything every single week. Could you maybe record on the weeks that you feel up to it, but only release every other week? So again, you have stuff in the backlog. I think that's honestly something that I plan to do moving forward, is having that, like, when I feel up to it, I will record. And maybe I'll record, if I'm feeling really good, I'll record 2 in a row, you know, or like maybe I can batch record. And again, that batch record 4 videos every other week, that's 2 months. And if I do that enough, like let's say I do it every month, but I'm really recording 2 months worth, I will have some stuff that I can release when I'm not feeling 100%. So I hope that helps. Again, like, it's going to be situation focused. It's going to be capacity focused, going to be based on like what your creative strengths are as well. So maybe some things like designing carousels for you is really fast. Maybe that's where you want to pray. Like, you're like, oh, I can knock like a bunch of those out. Then maybe, you find a way to do that, and use those images, and maybe the images can become like some of the video aspects. Like maybe you can animate that into video, or, just finding different ways to use things that you already know that you enjoy, or at least that are fast for you. Because I'll tell you, for me, design is not fast. That is not the place where like that's like, if I have a whole afternoon to spare, like then I'll sit there and I'll start to batch that kind of thing. But it's just, it's not as fast for me as turning on a camera and talking through like either a script that I've written, or, me just kind of being off the cuff. I've definitely tried to be more off the cuff more recently, because I noticed that you could kind of tell when I was looking at a teleprompter, which, maybe not everybody has that, but yeah, it's going to be a little bit dependent. So I would, if you are somebody who wants that kind of personalized guidance, I do offer that. It's just a way to get you started, get you into action, start thinking through what will have impact, what we can fit in between the client work, or how we can make that client work fuel the content creation. That's another aspect I didn't mention. I'll go ahead and mention that right now. There's so many times where I've taken transcripts from clients, in times where they've had questions, or times where I've explained concepts to them. Again, keeping their name out of it, like making it general, or like, hey, somebody asked me about how much should they talk about their personal life on their marketing, and here is what I think. Again, it doesn't have to be specific to any person. I will either take that and I will record something really quick right afterward, because I just got done talking about it, or in written form, I will pull that part of the transcript, again, adapting it to public consumption, being confidential, not mentioning, names or industries unless I'm given permission. But like, you can even use some of that client work as for one, feedback that you're like, hey, this is a question somebody has had, so I can guarantee at least other people are thinking about this thing. But also, again, you're not creating anything new. You're just taking and explaining a concept to like one more time. And you'll probably be in a little bit more succinct about it because you just explained it to somebody else. So I find that even having that mindset of, are there things that have been asked through my daily work that is something that is a relevant or timely topic that I can expand upon. So I really think that, and sometimes you need that outside person. Like, that's why I do the work that I do, is like, you need that outside person to be like, hey, you're spending time over here, but there's this really good opportunity right here, or you have this type of thing you've already done before, but I think you could tweak it and keep a lot of the similar things and bring it forward in this new way, or refresh the topic and get that traction like from that. So if that is something that you really just want somebody else's eyes on it, like I do 30-minute calls where I talk through all of that with you, and then you can have the option for us to build that roadmap together through a narrative growth audit. So if that is something that interests you, like I'll drop my email, or I'll drop, you can comment and we'll get in touch. But also no pressure, because, this is an ongoing thing. What worked for you 6 months ago, a year ago, is not necessarily going to work for you now. So you kind of just have to continually evolve, and experiment and see what worked, and see what is something that takes you less time, or what have you, and you can really just it gets faster every time. So the more consistent you are, that's another thing, you will just become naturally more efficient at that. I would say that for me, like, thumbnail design was something that I just struggled with so much, but I'm just getting a lot more efficient at it, and I think I'm getting better overall at it. Is it not where I want to be? Like, no, but like, same thing with video editing. Like, I've learned new techniques, and I've gotten a lot more confident in that part of the process. And so I do find that, like, it becomes more enjoyable for me now that I kind of know what the hell I'm doing with it, So, like, it even the hard parts get easier. So just kind of just keep going, keep taking action, keep moving forward, and that in and of itself is going to be what makes you successful.